Good morning and welcome back to In the Trenches with Dr. Tammy. Last week we had a fairly good episode, or shall I say, it was a great episode for me. I was able to share with you about giving yourself grace because I was also giving grace to myself. I mentioned last time that I wasn't really wearing a lot of makeup, and I need to share something with you. It's not really my thing, actually. I try to, put a little something on for the people. So what you're probably going to see more of me is the fact that there might be some gloss, maybe a little lipstick, not much eyeshadow and whatnot. So don't get beside yourself when you don't see too much of that. And the reason I'm sharing that with you is because today we have a very hot topic that I'm going to delve into in just a moment. You see, I'm getting lots of emails, lots of private messages, asking questions and providing comments about some of the things that we talk about in the podcast. So this week, we're going to talk about one of those things, and it is wife material. And I say that both lightly and seriously because many people ask me whether or not I believe I am wife material. Hopefully, I'll get to that part later on. But when we take a look at this face, it's more of a natural face. And we're saying, what? For me, is that wife material? Is it not? Is it outer beauty that folks are looking for? Is it inner beauty? We don't know. But we're going to chat about that, and then we'll get back to me and whether or not I am actually what folks are calling wife material. So let's chat for a moment. I'm going to read you a few things that people said about what they believe to be wife material, and then I'll get to some of my thoughts. And hopefully, when you watch, you'll come back with some comments and share with me what your actual thoughts are as well. So the question is actually being posed to the men. I was contacted to ask men, what do you consider to be wife material? They asked me to ask the ladies, I'm sorry, ladies, if you would kind of sit this one out and listen in for a moment. So I'm going to do my best to keep that promise and just kind of talk about the things that men have shared about what they believe or desire as wife material in their lives. So let's jump on into this topic and see where we can go with it today. Okay, so fellas, what do you believe to be wife material? And how do you know that she is wife material for you? One guy says it's by her lifestyle, her interests, her priorities, learning what's important to her, and where she spends her time and money. That will let you know what she values and what she wants. Okay? Another guy says, first of all, if she is single until she is married, mantra or attitude is conditional and feminine, not steadfast or resolute, aka wishy-washy, fickle, not a team player, and selfish, then she is definitely not wife material. Another one says she can be wife material, but not my wife material. So for this gentleman, he says his specific wife material is the one who shows him that she values him and how she prioritizes him as a person in her life. So what he's saying is that his specific wife material values him and how she places him into what's going on in her life currently and hopefully in the future. He simply says that is his opinion. Another one says, I haven't been married, so what do I know? And I think when we look at that particular comment, we should say, well, maybe you haven't been married before, but what would it take for you to look at a young lady or woman, seasoned person such as myself, as someone that you would want to spend your life with? What qualities or traits would she possess for you to say, hey, guess what? This is somebody that could be my wife. And why? So I would say to that gentleman, take you some time, just kind of think about it. Whether you've been married or not, what seems to be compatible for you? And that's what's important. What works for you? Okay? Another one says, well, when you know, you know. Not sure what that means, but he definitely did know. Okay? Another gentleman says, you have to carry yourself like a wife. When we get together, that means how you treat me. Are we compatible with our goals? Trust, compromise, and communication are essentials. And then he says this, which is one of my favorite things to say. He who finds a wife finds a good thing. I say it all the time because you know what? I happen to think that I am a good thing. And hopefully other women feel the same way about themselves. So this gentleman is very clear that he wants someone he can trust. He wants someone that can compromise, someone who's willing to be flexible with how they work towards reaching their goals. They want someone who can actually be there with them. Kind of sort of like what I say when we're in the trenches. If we're in the trenches together and we're working towards our goals, then guess what? We're more than likely going to get there if we're doing it in unison. Okay? Another gentleman says that I first need to want to be a husband. And that really stood out to me for a second because he is saying that you can want a wife all you want. You can define wife material until the cows come home. However, if you are not ready to be a husband yourself, is this going to be something that's going to work for the long term? And honestly, I've heard that statement before. I've heard someone say that you can't just want a wife. You need to be ready to be a husband. So what will that look like to you? So I would love to have seen this gentleman actually define a little bit more about what it means for him to want to be a husband. But I get the concept. He wants to make sure that he's ready to receive the woman that he is saying is his actual wife material. So hats off to him for saying, you know what? I need to be ready for her first. I don't have any right, and this is me kind of going through what I think he's saying. I don't have any right to say I want a wife if I'm not ready to provide said wife with the types of things that a husband should be able to do for and with her. So hats off to this gentleman. Another one says, it's about how she carries herself along with her character. And this one also added her online presence. Now, you all know I post on social media a lot. And sometimes the topics are controversial. Sometimes I can be one that will go in there and try to defend others. Gets me in trouble sometimes with my friends or family. But that online presence, I guess I will have to agree a bit with that. It can be concerning to some. But here's what I say. If she is your mate and you all communicate on a regular basis, and you know what she's saying is for the greater good, it's not necessarily about you, her, or you all as a couple. It is simply her trying to help others out. And that's where that line gets a little bit gray at times. People tend to see you online and believe that every single thing that you say pertains exactly to you when it doesn't. And many, many times, particularly in my case, things I may post or say aren't necessarily about me. They're actually about some of you and trying to move you in a positive direction in your thought processes. And not saying that everything that each and every one of us thinks online is negative, but it is my hope that when I share some of the experiences, some of the things that are said to me, some of the things that I hear, that it brings some light and some positivity to our thinking so that we can, as men, women, try to do better, try to focus on building positive relationships, try to work through some of those things that people do consider to be negative. Because if we don't do that, if we don't address the elephant in the room, then we aren't able to move forward. And when I say the elephant in the room, many, many times it is this whole mantra of men against women. And we need to stop that. We really need to discontinue that rhetoric. We need to work together because we are hopefully trying to attain many of the same goals, especially if we're talking about building relationships with each other. How can we be against one another if we're trying to build together? That, I believe, would be a recipe for disaster. But let's keep talking about this wife material for just a little bit. So someone says that he wants this person to make sure that she's looking out not only for herself, but for him. He wants her to be his backbone. And he goes on to say what he means by backbone is not necessarily somebody who is holding him up or propping him up when he is feeling not his best. But what he said is he wants that support. He wants that woman in his life who can, when he is having a bad day, can say to him, "It's all right. I got you." That she can speak life into him, that she can remind him of who he is and where he's trying to go, that she will be his safe space. And for me, I think that is a huge thing for men or women. So whether we're talking wife material or husband material, which we'll get to, I guess, at another time, our person needs to be our safe space. So I will have to agree with this gentleman. And when he says, "Hey, you're my backbone," not the one that stands me up, but the one that helps me to remember how I can push through, what I can do to keep going, that you can remind me of who I am and where I'm going. So somebody said, "Dr. Tammy, are you wife material?" I will have to say that in this heart of mine, I absolutely believe that I am wife material. And no, not because I think I'm kind of cute. I would hope that I think I'm kind of cute, but that's not it. We've talked about me a bit on each episode. Let's start with my heart. And we talk about it every time. This heart of mine is so giving, so extremely giving that I absolutely believe that is a part of being wife material for me. I provide the type of support that I believe that my person would need. Just like the gentleman said before, I am there to remind him of who he is, that while there are going to be days that are tough for him, I'm going to be right there beside him, pushing him through, supporting his goals, and making sure that he understands that he cannot give up. No matter what this world throws towards him, in his direction, at him, all of the above, this lady right here will be here with a smiling face when one is needed, be here ready in the trenches when that's needed, to have those courageous conversations with him as well, because we have to remember, sometimes our person doesn't need us to sugarcoat it for them. They sometimes need us to be real, 100% real with exactly what's happening for them. And they need that, because if we're not real with them, guess who is going to be real with them? The world. And then they're not prepared to move in the manner in which they need to move to be successful. Because remember, we're trying to build something together. And if we're not having courageous conversations, if we're not speaking life into each other, if we're not there when we need the other person, then I'm not wife material. And more than likely, sir, you may not be husband material for me either. But I will have to go back and say, yes, I believe that I'm wife material. I am working on myself daily. I reflect and I grow, and that's a personal decision, which leads you to be ready for your person when they arrive, when they present themselves to you. You are doing your best to be ready. So guess what? Dr. Tammy is doing her best to be ready as well. And remember, as I always say, I am imperfect, but I am going to be perfectly imperfect for the person who was made especially for me. So we have made it through our episode for today. I want to share some gratitude with each of you because my article just dropped recently in Majority Greek magazine. Thank you again, Dr. Antoine Dwayne Jones, for being such an excellent photographer and getting my face out there to the masses. If you're interested in reading that Focus magazine and checking out what I'm bringing to the table, as some might say, please reach out. Please visit the website for Majority Greek, which is majoritygreek.com. Or you can reach me, of course, on all of my social media platforms. I'm on Instagram as Dr. Tammy Reginelli, also on Facebook as In the Trenches with Dr. Tammy, and also as Tammy Reginelli. I thank you for tuning in with me again today, and I'm wishing you a very prosperous and wonderful weekend, month, and remainder of this year, although we have over a month or so to go. Much love, and remember, please let love win. Happy Friday.